Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I'm here to do the Count to 10 with me book tag. The tag was created by Shaun at the Bumbling Blogger. I was tagged by Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff. This tag has 10 prompts. First prompt, first book in a series. I'm going to go with The First Man in Rome by Colleen McCullough. This is her series of historical novels set in ancient Rome. It begins in the Democratic Republic of Rome with Gaius Marius, who is a new man, just elevated to the upper classes. And he has an idea to bring more people into the armies to fight the barbarians, and that is to let the lower classes fight in the armies. Now what happens is this book will go from Gaius Marius to Sulla and eventually to Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar is the main character of this series, but it takes about 2 books to get to him. And there are, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books in this series, and they're all chunkers like this one. But they're fascinating. The only real issue I have with Colleen McCullough is that she likes a lot of exclamation points in her writing. Prompt number 2, 2 or more copies of the same book. By Reason of Insanity by Shaun Stevens. I read this many years ago, 90s. It is an excellent early serial killer novel written before Thomas Harris sort of took over the genre. And what happened was I was looking at one of the Discord bulletin boards and someone mentioned that they were looking for this book, but it was really expensive. It was like $40 on the internet. And if you can read this, I picked this up at a used bookstore for $2. So that's a good deal. Now, the thing is, I don't need 2 copies, and I bought this explicitly to give away. So if someone wants a copy of By Reason of Insanity, and I'll ship it for free, just leave me a comment below. Prompt number 3, 3 or more colors on the cover. Now who knows, maybe I'm cheating. I'm not counting white as a color, but this has black, purple, and orange. And this is an excellent introduction to Zen if you want to learn more about Zen. 4 or more perspectives. When I heard this question on Jim's channel, I knew exactly what book I wanted, because it's supposed to get a book with at least 4 different character perspectives. And I picked 4, 3, 2, 1 by Paul Auster. And this is the story of a young Jewish boy in New York City. And his father owns a warehouse. They do okay. But his father has hired his ne'er-do-well brother, and the brother has come up with an insurance scheme, and he's going to burn down the warehouse for insurance money. Now that is the basic part of the plot, but each chapter will come in 4 parts. You will have 4 chapter 1s, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. And each chapter will take that story in a different direction. In one of the chapters, the warehouse burns down, but the father does not tell on his brother, so there is no insurance money. In the second, he does tell on his brother, and he collects the insurance money. In the third, the father dies in the warehouse fire. And in the fourth, I think it's just the warehouse fire is prevented. So you have the same character, Ferguson, and his life goes in 4 different directions. And very fascinating. And he does not survive all the stories. So when he dies in one of the storylines, you will get a blank chapter where that was supposed to fit in. And they're just some really great stories. One of my favorite one was when Ferguson was dating a girl and their parents were out of town for the weekend, and they decided to go back home and have sex. They set it up a few days in advance. Unfortunately, the date they set up was the day John Kennedy got assassinated, and their little nookie session never happened. Highly recommend this book. It is fascinating. It takes 4 different characters and totally 4 different lives. Prompt 5, a 5-star read. The Magus by John Fowles. This is the story of a young Englishman after World War II living in London, and he takes a job as a school teacher on a Greek island. And on that Greek island, he meets a beautiful woman and an older man who is sort of a Svengali type of character. And he will manipulate this young woman and this young man into these very peculiar situations, which he calls the God Game. This novel is fascinating, and it is completely strange, and it will turn off some readers by its strangeness. But I absolutely love this. This copy I'm holding up is an early edition, as it was first published. A few years after he published it, he revised the story and changed some elements. It's more of a stylistic change and not real plot change, but this is the original. I have the modified or revised versions as an audiobook and as an ebook. I highly recommend The Magus by John Fowles. Prompt number 6, 6 or more short stories. The Books of Blood by Clive Barker. When this book was originally published, Clive Barker was the hot stuff in horror short stories. He was going to have a stellar career, and he did have a very good career. He wrote a very good novel called The Damnation Game. He wrote a sort of fantasy novel, cross with horror, called Weave World. He wrote Imagikia. But his short stories were his strength. These short stories are fantastic. The first story in this collection, The Midnight Meat Train, is going to meet anyone's criteria for a first-class horror short story. And this collection has 6 short stories. Unfortunately, Clive Barker seems to have dropped off that high tier of horror writers. He directed the movie Hellraiser, which was based on one of his novellas, The Hellbound Heart, and he never seemed to recover his writing career after he started making movies, at least in my opinion. Prompt 7, a 7 on the cover or the spine. Now, it doesn't say it has to be a numeral. Mine is 7 Plays by Sam Shepard. I have read one of his most famous plays, The Buried Child, and that is a very good play. I have also seen his play True West on stage in Seattle for the Repertory Theater, and that again is a very good play. He was one of our most prominent American playwrights in the latter half of the 20th century, and if you like drama, pick him up. Prompt number 8, 8 letters in the title. Excuse me. Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. This was his follow-up novel to Gravity's Rainbow. It was published about 10 years after that novel. I read it when it first came out. I kind of liked it. I was way too young and not sophisticated enough for Thomas Pynchon at that time. This book is due for a reread. All I can say is that it's set in California. Prompt number 9, a book that ends on a page ending in 9. And what we have here is we have a book that ends on page 69. This is Down Below by Leonora Carrington. She was actually more known as a surreal artist, but she also wrote a fantastic novel called The Hearing Trumpet, which was also a surreal novel of a little old lady who gets sent to a very surreal nursing home. And it borders on fantasy at times. It gets so strange. Now, this was her memoir of her time in a mental institution, because she cracked up a bit. Her husband, Max Ernst, who was also a surrealist artist, died in World War II. Prompt number 10. 10 books in the series. I presume I can go a little bit higher than 10, but I'm going to pick a series that I'm sure no one is going to talk about, and that is Upton Sinclair's Lanny Budd series. It was originally published in a 10-book series, and that series was so successful, he did eventually publish an 11th volume. And this starts off when the character is just a little boy living in Europe. And the book will eventually go on to Lanny Budd as a international agent. So it goes into the espionage territory. And his most famous book in that series is Dragon's Teeth, which won the Pulitzer Prize. I believe he won that in 41 or 42, somewhere around then. It is about Lanny Budd's experiences in pre-World War II Germany when Hitler was on the rise. It is a book I very much want to read. I could probably read this without reading the second book in the series. I did read the first one, World's End, but it's a very long book and very complicated, and I just keep putting it off, and I shouldn't put it off because he's a very fascinating writer. Now, Upton Sinclair is most famously known for his novel, The Jungle, which explored what happens in a meat packing plant. And that novel is horrendous in its descriptions of what goes on in the meat packing plant. It changed the way the United States allowed people to service meat. It created basically the Food and Drug Administration that legislates how you prepare meat. It's also a socialist novel because Upton Sinclair is a socialist with the capital letter S, the kind of man that all the Republicans really fear. But he's a good writer, kind of sloppy, but well thought out. And that is the end of the tag. So who do I tag? I'm going to tag my buddy Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. I'm going to tag Michael Romeo Talks Books and Peter the Book Lover. So if you guys want to do this tag, go ahead. If you don't want to, don't feel obligated. Thank you for watching and keep on reading.